Over the years, Siege has seen a lot of updates, many of which have been received with open arms and have helped grow the game and its community. However, some are so good that the entire community falls in love and the game flourishes. So, in today's video, I'll be looking back at some of these seasons to decide which is the best Siege season of all time. One of the earliest examples of a season that blew expectations out of the water and that delivered in the content department was Operation Blood Orchid. This season released on September 5th, 2017, and was the second season within year 2. The main reason for this operation being a contender in this video is because it launched with a ton of content in comparison to normal. On the operator side, we got 3 operators instead of the usual 2. These operators being Ying, Ella, and Lesion. Ying's release had a huge effect on the meta and resulted her being used a lot in ranked to execute onto the site and for her to help her team cover a plant. However, Lesion and Ella had the biggest effect on the meta. This is because Ella released with the Scorpion Evo, which was by far the strongest gun ever added to Siege. This thing had a high magazine size and a stupidly fast fire rate, which combined with its low recoil allowed Ella to absolutely dominate. Her mines were strong as well. They concussed, shaked the player's screen, and made it hard for the player to hear, which was a deadly combo. However, Lesion was strong for the opposite reason. His traps were beyond broken, giving him free intel, dealing heavy damage to the enemy and slowing them down. This made him an obvious choice for pretty much every round, and the T5 was solid as well, which allowed him to still perform well in gunfights in comparison to other operators on the defense. With these 3 fun and hugely meta affecting operators, the season was already off to a great start. However, on top of these 3 operators, we got Theme Park as a new map added to the game, and we got a ton of balancing changes, with the most notable being the removal of Jaeger and Bandit ACOG that helped to move the meta away from ACOGs on defense. With all of this content, it's pretty obvious why this season is so widely remembered. We have only gotten 3 operators in a season twice, and Blood Orchid managed to make all of the operators viable and fun to play. Operation Chimera is a season that completely broke the meta for over a year. However, the sheer amount of content means that I had to include it in this video. Now, the reason this season broke the meta is because it brought 2 completely broken operators with global abilities. Finka was the first operator, and her ability was her surges that allowed her to heal, revive, and buff her entire team with the click of a button. Now, Finka didn't really impact the meta much at the time. She was just a fun casual operator, and her ranked utility was basically slim to none, so she was never really chosen outside of a few niche strategies. However, she would become stronger as time went on. Lion, on the other hand, the second operator added in the season, was way stronger than Finka on release. This is because he had his E1D that revealed any moving defender during activation. So when you realize he's an operator with a really good gun with a 50-round drum and a gadget that can force the entire enemy team to just stand still, I think you can realize why he was such a problem. Because if the enemies did decide to move, he'd get wall hacks and he could just spray his 50-round drum into a wall and get a free kill. And if they decided to stand still, he could aggressively push into the bomb site and use his 50-round drum to pre-fire enemies pushing him. This allowed him and his team to walk through the defense by abusing his ability. And because of this, Lion shifted the attacker's meta into a very aggressive and annoying playstyle. It basically became the norm after this update to bring a Lion, Jackal, and Dokkaebi together so that you could overwhelm the defense and aggressively push into the site. And this combo also made roaming basically impossible, because if you got caught off site by a drone, you were basically going to get scanned by Jackal, revealed by Lion, and Dokkaebi called all at the same time. So I'm sure you can see that this season's balancing when it came to its operators was all out of whack. But why did Ubisoft make such a big mistake in that regard? Well, that's because these new operators were never designed for ranked or even the base game. They were designed for a limited time mode called Outbreak. And this even is the reason why I'm including Chimera in this video. Just in case you haven't played Outbreak or heard of it before, it was Siege's take on a zombie-like PvE mode, and it was Ubisoft's first attempt at a limited time mode in Siege ever. This mode came with its own cosmetics that you could buy from event packs, and the operators were designed to function well in this mode specifically. Players had to eliminate aliens called Archeans and complete objectives. Lion and Finka were useful because they offered the ability to locate Archeans on the map and heal the team if HP was running low. This mode was so well received and popular amongst the community that Ubisoft wanted to make more events for the game going forward, and they would end up developing an entire spin-off game based on the mechanics and atmosphere that was founded in Outbreak. This game was called R6 Extraction, and that is why I'm including this season in this video. The event had so much content and genuinely made this such a fun time to be playing Siege. Lion did make the game hard to play in ranked though, but the event alone meant I had to discuss it in this video. Operation But Horizon is another fan favorite season due to the operators provided and the changes it brought to the game. The 2 new operators that were added included Mozzie, the defender, and Gridlock, the attacker. Mozzie was extremely unique. He brought the ability to hack attacker drones into the defense with his pests. which was huge for the game going forward. This allowed the defense to have an additional counter to drones outside of just mute, and it allowed Mozzie to add more cameras to his team that they could then use later in the round to gather more intel. Mozzie would have a huge impact because of this, but it also helped that he was extremely fun as well. Many enjoyed using his weapons, the P10 Roni and the Commando, and he would become a popular fan favorite choice because of this. As for the other operator brought in this season, Gridlock, she wasn't nearly as popular due to her track singers filling a similar role as the previous season's Nomad. But it also didn't help that she was a 3-armor, which meant it was very slow to rotate with her, and she wasn't seen as nearly as fun. She still really hasn't had a chance to shine even today, but she was still a welcomed addition at the time. And then the new map, Outback, was the total opposite. It was a small, restrictive, and defender-sided map that many people would quickly come to dislike. Due to this, the map would only stay in the rank pool for a little over a year in its current state and would never make it to professional play. Despite the somewhat disappointing map, the balancing changes were amazing and helped to alleviate a lot of the problems of the time. Some of the most known examples include Ash's R4C ACOG being removed, Legion's goo mines damage being reduced, Lion's gadget getting reworked into what it is today, and Maestro's gadget getting nerfed. There was much more on top of this. However, these were the most significant and the ones that had the most effect on the meta. And these balancing changes were so good that, to be honest, they kind of made up for the map not being super great. The Lion nerf was likely the biggest because it finally shifted the attack away from the super aggressive meta established in Chimera. And when you combine that with the really fun operators, I felt it was worth discussing this season in this video, even though it may not be the best season of all time. Shadow Legacy is a pretty controversial season, and that is because of the new content's effect on the meta. However, from a sheer content perspective, this season might be the best of all time. The new content this season brought to the game was not the typical things we had come to expect from seasons previously. There were not 2 new operators in the season. What we got instead was 1 licensed operator from a different Ubisoft game series, and to make up for a lack of 2 operators, a ton of changes and other forms of content came along with this season. I'd say the most obvious example of this is the variety of new weapon sights like the 2X, 3X, and the 1.5. This addition absolutely tore apart the meta for years to come, with the 1.5 becoming by far the most popular attachment in the entire game. It led to everyone running it, and it raised the win rates and pick rates for every operator who had access to it. On top of that, we also got the addition of the new secondary hard breach charges, ping 2.0, the removal of vote to kick, Thatcher's rework, Tachanka's rework, and the introduction of map bans to ranked, and much more. The sheer amount of changes was honestly unmatched. The game was changed entirely, and the update would have effects on the meta for years to come because of how influential the concept was. Because of this, many players consider this update to be the best in Siege history just from a content perspective. But the changes weren't the only thing good in this patch. The new operator Zero was a cool concept, with his gadget being basically Valkyrie on attack, which allowed him to help his team gather intel. And the new map rework for Chalet is one of, if not Ubisoft's best reworks they've ever made. It fixed a lot of the core issues with the map, and because of this, it would quickly become one of the most popular maps in the entire ranked pool. This season was just impeccable overall. However, there are some things that prevent it from being the best in my eyes. That is the fact that the season had such detrimental effects on the meta, and the fact that it helped to lay a precedent of only 1 operator getting released per season. Operation Deadly Omen is a very recent example of a solid season that was met with praise by the community. It was also an exciting one, to say the least. We saw the introduction of Deimos as the new operator, and an absolute crapload of balancing changes and reworks. Deimos was and still is pretty strong due to his gadget, because with a click of a button, he can activate his deathmark tracker, which will reveal the location of the defender chosen through walls, effectively giving Deimos wall hacks on any defender he wants. However, during the duration of the scan, Deimos' position is also revealed periodically, and he can only have his handgun out. Due to the difficulty of his gadget, he would never have a huge foothold in lower ranks, but at the higher ranks is where he would really shine. However, another thing about Deimos that helped him to be welcomed was his amazing lore, character design, and voice acting. All of his cinematic cutscenes were loved, and his aesthetic is probably one of the best in the whole game. Moving past just Deimos though, there are a lot of balancing changes I could talk about, but the main things are the shield rework, the Azami nerf, the LMG rework, the repel changes, the trajectory pre-visibility, and the attachment rework. All of these changes were huge for the meta and helped to add a lot of asked for features. However, the attachment rework was likely the most influential of them all. The 1.5 change though was by far the biggest when it came to the meta, and that's because Ubisoft turned it into a 2.5x sight, basically making it an ACOG. This immediately made its versatility worse, and to go along with this, many operators gained and lost access to the magnification sights. This helped to shift the meta away from people picking operators just to get access to the 1.5 and helped to make the game a lot more balanced. With all of these changes and with such a fan favorite operator getting added, this is definitely within my top 5 seasons of all time. However, the lack of content in comparison to other earlier seasons means I could not justify making it the best in this video. However, the game I can justify putting as the best season in the game's entire history is Operation Bellum. This season was extremely popular when it came out, and it's my favorite of all time personally, and I think it's clear to see why. Bellum saw the introduction of 2 defenders to the game, since Chimera brought 2 attackers to even out the operator distribution. The first of them was Alibi, whose gadget was a hologram that mimicked her appearance. These acted as traps that, when shot by one of the attackers, would immediately reveal the player's position that shot it. Due to her gadget being kind of lackluster, she would never really pick up off the ground, and she would only be used for her good guns and 3-speed rating. She would only really ever become popular when her MX4 Storm got the 1.5 added to it years down the line, and Ubisoft would immediately remove it and nerf her to the ground, so she's not really useful today either. However, Maestro, the other defender that came in the season, would make such a big impact that it would make up for Alibi being so lackluster. The reason Maestro had such a big impact is due to his LMG being extremely busted on launch, allowing him to hit fire opponents at any range, and due to his camera's effectiveness at stopping a plant. His cam specifically would become the center of the meta alongside Echo, resulting in a super heavy intel-centered meta where the defenders focused on gathering it while the attackers tried to deny it. Outside of the new operators and op changes, Ubisoft made the decision to make all 3-speed operators slower and all 1-speed operators faster. They wanted to make the speeds of operators more consistent, and they wanted to remove the gap between different operators. This would end up being relatively controversial at the time, but I think nowadays, looking back, it wasn't as bad as many people believed it to be. Moving past this, Bellum also brought a lot of content on the map front. Both the Clubhouse rework and the new map Villa was released this season as well. This is an insane amount of content when you compare it to even the most recent updates. 1 new map, a reworked map, 2 new operators, and a solid amount of meta influencing balancing changes all in one package makes Bellum the clear choice for me as the best season in R6 history. It had a massive influence on the game, and the content was fun to mess around with. Anyways, that wraps up today's video. Let me know if you think I missed any seasons, and let me know if you agree with my choice for the best season in R6 in the comments down below. If you enjoyed today's video, I make these content just like this once a week, so go subscribe to the channel and follow me on Twitter if you don't want to miss the next upload. Now, if you want to watch another video just like this one, a video will be popping up on your screen right now that I'm sure you all enjoy. I'll see you next time, friends, and peace.